Tonight, Canada will close its borders to all except the United States. Most public venues being closed down in Germany. Good evening, this is Force 13 Live with another live event, a special on the latest around the world on the coronavirus. We're here once again. I think this is the fourth one we've done now. We started it late last week. We've been doing it most days. My name's Nathan Foy. I'm joined by the team tonight, which consists of several people, and they're showing us all kinds of things already. We're joined by Strat, David, Lee, Parker, and Orlando. Good evening to you all.
Yeah.
Nathan,
Good evening.
I don't think we're live, mate. Sorry to do
We
it
are
to
definitely live.
We are
Definitely live.
And this is Force 13
sorry.
Live. Are you okay? That's not a very good start. All right.
Apology.
Well, a lot has been going on around the world today, and the latest news, I guess, that we need to bring to you immediately, because we've not managed to package this into our pre-record stuff, is that France is pretty much shutting down everything. They're going into a complete lockdown later on in the week. I think it's Wednesday that they're doing that, or Tuesday?
Yes,
I think it's Wednesday. So that's the latest out of France, going into full lockdown on Wednesday. Spain is effectively shut down. Germany has closed down pretty much everywhere public. All kinds of locations now shutting off international access, really. Canada, of course, being the latest to do that, as you saw in the headlines there. And I guess maybe if we could get a US perspective on it, because the US has been exempted from that ban, at least for now. Any thoughts on that, guys?
Not really. Shat would probably know more about this, but not. It's kind of shocking, really.
I would say, economically it makes sense considering our, trade links with Canada, but in terms of stopping the spread of the virus, I'm particularly surprised considering America is essentially a heavy hotspot at this point for the spread of COVID-19.
Okay. And do we think the US is going to do this anytime soon? It's a very large country to orchestrate such a thing, or do you think states will take their own decisions?
States already have, but at the same time, there's rumors trying to float around.
But you say states already have, but none of them have actually shut to other states.
Not fully. They haven't shut borders, but there are rumors trying to float around that not only are their town lockdowns already happening, San Francisco's making pretty strong advisories today, but there's starting to be rumors floating around more financial markets and stuff that they're going to be doing more large-scale nationwide lockdowns as well in the very near future. And that's causing a significant amount of concern. All
right. There's a map that Jason made not so long ago of a county-level overview of the United States as to where the confirmed cases and deaths are so far. You can see they're pretty evenly spread out in terms of population densities. Any particular statistics across the United States right now that you want to make us aware of, guys?
Probably the rate of spread more than anything else. That's been going up consistently day by day, even still extremely lackluster testing that we have in America at this point in time. Already so far today, there's already over almost 700 confirmed cases added on to the total. We're over 4,000 now, with unfortunately 75 deaths occurring at this point in time. The general mitigation is really only starting to kick in now, and that could be a large problem in the future, considering a lot of the active cases are probably going to start pouring into becoming more severe, at least some of them in the near future as well, considering about 20% of cases end up needing hospital treatment.
All right, we're now also joined by Justin and Timothy. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Nathan.
And we were just talking about the United States. I don't know if there's anything you want to add in at this point as well. I think, Tim, you had a lot of news from your area in North Carolina.
I did. Cumberland County, which is where United States headquarters is based at, is now under a state of emergency. Health department officials have been in meetings extensively since most of the schools are closed. They have been debating on whether or not to close daycares. At this point, they are not doing that in this state. There was a report over the weekend that we had a case that was at a legal convention in Raleigh. Health department officials are trying to track down everybody that may have come in contact with that particular individual. That was from March 8th, before the ban on mass gatherings of 100 people or more were implemented by Governor Roy Cooper earlier this week. And I've been reading across a lot of the news wires that not only have grocery stores shutting down some of their times, but also some local restaurants are. Fast food chains, Chick-fil-A and Taco Bell and McDonald's have all shut down their dine-in
Yes.
for their patrons. But
I read about
they're
that.
they're still keeping carryouts.
And a lot of places,
and
Tim, are
drive-thrus.
shutting down now out of their own choice in the UK and the US because of lack of people out there. Everyone is generally, a lot of people are staying in now.
Yes, they are. And some of the photos that we were seeing last week of shelves being bare, that is happening here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I actually was able to go out shopping on a Saturday at a couple stores, one of them being your basic run-of-the-mill store and a more upscale end store. And the vibe that I got from the cashiers I was able to talk to is that they're aware of the situation. The people that have been coming in and getting supplies have been really orderly. It's just been a very strong demand, and they're still able to meet them, but obviously supplies are starting to run short in some areas. The one upper scale store I went to, their management team had actually changed their procedures on how they were conducting business. Instead of sanitizing services every hour, they had gone to every 30 minutes.
Wow.
And they were doing more sanitation checks throughout their store. So
But there is still a lot of unnecessary panic buying going on across loads of countries right now. And there was an interesting point that was raised on some local groups about how all of the cheap stuff had gone, but the more expensive brands were still there. They were speculating that people weren't doing it out of necessity because they would have bought the expensive ones anyway.
And that is absolutely right. That a lot of the lower end stores are getting hit first, and then more of the upper scale ones are getting hit later. That was actually what I ran into at the upper end store Saturday evening, where the cashier had said that on Friday night, which was payday for everybody here in the United States, is where they saw their highest volume activity, and they were pretty well cleaned out.
Yeah, it's going on all over the place, and I think we can only say that this is a slow-moving disaster in progress, and there really is no need to. But then that's the thing, isn't it? Once one person does it, people are saying, "Oh goodness, the stores are going to run out," and everyone's going to go out and buy everything.
Exactly.
It's as simple as that.
That, and it doesn't help Nathan. I was reading a couple stories earlier this morning. When you do have people that are trying to profit off of the fear of the situation, there was actually a gentleman in Tennessee a few days ago that had literally bought out all the hand sanitizer within his state and the surrounding states to the tune of having almost 17,000 bottles of sanitizer. And then he was trying to flip it for profit, trying to do online sales with it, charging exuberant prices, almost $70 a bottle. And between the site that he was selling on and the state attorney general, they were able to curtail that activity. And he actually got a bit of a conscience after enough pressure and donated it all to a local church.
That's what I heard. I did hear about that story, actually. I can't remember where from. We've been all over the wires everywhere, haven't we, recently?
It was in Tennessee.
Absolutely. It was in Tennessee.
But, Justin.
What?
I was just wondering if you wanted to add on to that.
Add on to what?
Your situation in your neck of the woods?
Oh, yeah. As you can see, my situation is pretty intense. It all started on Saturday when we were by. You see, my county hasn't even had any cases yet, and though my Wegmans and the they're all out of toilet paper, and I also found out on Saturday that school's closed for me until April 13th. So that's
Yep.
pretty
That is quite a
interesting.
while.
Mhm.
We're
Yeah,
also
actually,
joined.
this is
Yes.
this is a breaking thing. I'm sorry about this. If
Okay.
we're just talking about schools and stuff. I know a lot of our viewers right now are going to be dealing with their own school cancellations and such. My school just moved to online learning for the rest of the semester, so I am not going back to college until at least August at this point in time now, rather
Wow.
than
Oh
less than a month.
dear.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah,
That is
Anything
really
literally
crazy.
just came through. So good thing when I moved back home yesterday, I took everything with me, other than my really terrible, just a couple miscellaneous things. But a lot of college students are dealing with this right now as well. As I can tell you, it's an absolute mess.
All right. Orlando's also here. What's going on over there?
Well, in the state of New Jersey, Governor Murphy announced in a press conference a variety of policies undertaken to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Schools will be closed basically indefinitely till,
Yeah.
well, yeah, basically indefinitely. This also includes universities, which have already closed before the schools, actually, around here at least.
It's the best thing
Um,
to do, really, because this, no one really knows where the end is, and it could happen at any point, but obviously not anytime soon. Yeah.
Yeah, the original plan for my school, for instance, was to close for 2 weeks, and switch to online learning during that duration. But now it seems as though we don't know when that's going to end. Um, Beyond that, of course, you have the supermarket panic. Yeah, over here, same situation with toilet paper. Although, interestingly enough, out of all places that actually are in high supply of toilet paper at the moment would be our local 7-Eleven.
Okay.
And something to note on that county map that you have, and
Yeah.
I'm just doing a little research on the North Carolina and state of Ohio government websites. The trend that I'm seeing is that a lot of these cases are in a lot of your bigger metropolitan areas. I know here in North Carolina, Wake County has 14 cases. That is your Raleigh-Durham area. And then getting up into the state of Ohio, they have 50 cases, 24 will be in Cuyahoga County. That is your Cleveland, Ohio area.
It does make sense, though, doesn't it? With the bigger population centres, there's a higher chance that someone there, with the population density.
It does, and that just kind of harkens to the notion of that probably where we're seeing a lot of the fear mongering and where we're seeing a lot of the panic buying is in the bigger metro areas. If you're in some of the more sparsely populated counties, still don't let your guard down, but definitely don't be going overboard like you're seeing on the mass media. That's not really what we want to encourage.
And here in the UK, London, one of the worst places in this country as well at this time. Now, schools are staying open here in the UK. The government are did another press conference earlier today. They're still stopping short from imposing shutdowns, but they are sort of suggesting that places, meeting points, places closed down, which we'll probably have more on shortly. But we're going to take a short break now and detail everything else that's going on around the world with some of the top headlines at this point, as soon as the music comes on. Well, in a moment. And we'll be back with more, and we'll talk stocks with Strat later on as well, because I'm sure he's itching to get into all of that news too. Italy confirms a third day of over 3,000 new cases as more towns get sealed off in the north. Spain is effectively on lockdown as the cases near 10,000. The president of the Community of Madrid being one of the latest to test positive, with regional elections scheduled for April to be put back. Cases continue to rise in the United States, with over 4,000 now at this point. The The Supreme Court has postponed oral arguments scheduled for this month, and the stocks are suffering another brutal day. The UK begins daily televised briefings, but still somewhat reserved in their tone, emphasising the need to keep things moving and for those in at-risk groups to take their precautions now. And if you have your own story locally or regionally about the coronavirus, send us a message on any of our mediums and we'll put it to air. Facebook, Twitter, and through email at contact@force13.com. Yes, Force 13 Live. More on the coronavirus live here from Force 13 HQ. And joined again by the team. Alright, just trying to sort things out there. There again is the live, or almost live, US map. The counties that are affected by the coronavirus, which we just spoke through there. Let's talk to Parker about what's going on in his state. Parker, go ahead.
Yeah, so today we had our first death, surprisingly, and actually over the past 2 days we had a big surge going from, I believe it was 16 to now 24 cases, so we've had a big surge in cases recently, and some new counties as well. We had, I think it was around March 14th, we had 17 cases, or 16, I forgot what number it exactly was, but now we have 24, with our first death today from being from a 6-year-old that had pre-existing health conditions as well. But now we have Marion is experiencing some high numbers now. Marion County with 7 cases, and Hendricks County, a new county, coming up with 3 cases. So we're starting to see a surge in some of the southern counties now in Indiana, which is going to be very interesting seeing how it develops and seeing if it will start to shut down schools for the rest of the year now, especially with that one death in Marion County. It's very interesting seeing what happens in the next few weeks.
And of course, we're hearing from all sorts of countries. We had Hong Kong the other day on our stream. David, in Australia, how are things there right now?
It's starting to get out of control. The daily rate of infection is accelerating from 19.6% Sunday to 27.6% yesterday, with 171 new cases in the state of New South Wales. The question is whether Australia will follow the curve of Italy, which 3 weeks ago had, 229 patients, now has almost 25,000. Or the other question, Nathan, and I'm going by news item, or will we be able to slow the growth like South Korea? Health authorities fear up to 50,000 deaths in Australia.
Really?
Oh
Now,
my.
David, the cases are probably more close to home for you than for many other people on our team so far.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yeah, I got a phone call from my sister. My niece is under investigation.
Or
and
testing, right?
For testing. She's now at home. The rest of my family haven't been told, and it is hitting hard. And I was in contact with the local hospital yesterday. The staff have been absolutely fantastic, and for our viewers, I've had to cancel 2 medical appointments, and they're saying that we could have this right through to September because the winter months don't. Yep, and we still don't know what's happening with the schools, but our governments have to step up.
So your schools are still open as well, right?
They're still open, but they can't make up their minds
Right.
yet, Nathan. But some private schools have closed, and I'm hearing that there's a possibility of 4 cases in my area.
And briefly as well, do you know anything about the situation over in New Zealand too?
New Zealand has the information is the same to what we had on a previous update. The New Zealand actually the mail that travelled from Townsville to New Zealand, he has apologised. He's currently there in New Zealand.
Could you just remind people of that story, David?
He was a carrier, and he travelled through the Townsville airport. He went to New Zealand. I think he's probably, I don't know whether he came to Sydney or Brisbane. I'm not sure whether Townsville's got a direct flight
But was it, from what I was hearing from you yesterday, they were already aware that they had the virus when they travelled? Is that right?
Yes, he was aware that he had the virus, and when New Zealand officials found out, they were extremely angry, which they're entitled to be. But he has provided a statement. But
okay, all right. Let's not go too far on that one. Strat, economically still slumping. Transportation firms in particular.
I can actually get some screen shares up, just to provide some context as well to the situation that's been developing. Overnight, China released some pretty bad economic data that fell very, very far short of forecasts. Also, last night was the absolutely extraordinary move of the Federal Reserve throwing a complete bazooka gauntlet to try to save the markets, or at least their attempt to. They literally threw the kitchen sink and more. Cut rates emergency by over 100 points to zero, to 0.25%. So, rates in America are basically zero now. And they also initiated $700 billion in quantitative easing.
Yeah.
That's on top of the 50-point emergency cut they did less than 2 weeks ago, and the $1.5 trillion repo program that they also initiated last week as well. The markets hated it. They thought it made it look like the Federal Reserve was being desperate, that they were trying to stop something that's already started, and the timing was conspicuous as well, because the Fed has a meeting this week already on Wednesday, and they chose to do this right before futures in Asia opened.
So, Strat, you're watching this very closely. Where next, and what does this mean for Joe Public?
It's hard to say. We recorded a single worst percentage day again since the 1987 crash. We were down about 12% to 13% today on the markets. We erased all of Friday's gains and more by a significant margin as well. So it's very, very ugly. It's hard to say exactly what specific economic impacts will occur because, the stock market's gotten so disassociated with, just plain old regular consumer life. But there is significant fears that immediate layoffs will be happening in the near future at very large sizes. And that's reflected in numerous forecasts of GDP being slashed to this upcoming quarter being even negative by up to 5 to 10%. For GDP growth in America.
Something I've been wondering, how are these consumer stores doing? Because with all this panic buying that's going on, is that offsetting their losses at all?
It depends, because it's very selective on what kind of store. If you're a store that provides, food and, home things like wipes and toilet paper and stuff, you're probably doing great right now. Your concern is keeping up with, the demand, and also making sure no one gets infected there, but also to make sure that your suppliers are okay. Because if this gets bad enough and suppliers start shuttering, having to lay people
the
off,
whole world could screech.
They won't be able, because a lot of these suppliers might not be able to deliver these goods to these stores soon enough if they have to shut down, at least temporarily even, and that's going to provide a large problem. But in terms of profits, those stores are probably doing all right. But the real problem is going to be for most retail stores, the ones that aren't selling food or wipes or toilet paper and tissues, that sell, accessories, ones that sell electronics, or if you're selling clothes, no one's coming to you. Yeah. non-essentials to keep yourself safe and fed are going to be in big trouble. Obviously, tourism is down the drain.
That
Has
is
been
probably going to be the worst, isn't it?
Oh, totally. I have a family friend that's a manager at a hotel in New York City. She said last week, even before the whole lockdowns had occurred, that they were already seeing huge drops in bookings, and that everyone was calling to see how they could cancel a
Yeah.
trip that they had already booked as well, um, and just general reductions in stays. That's probably going to continue to worsen, at least in my opinion. We can't fix the underlying problem, which is the virus itself. Without fixing that, things will just undoubtedly probably decline in condition. To be
Right.
honest.
Parker, is that breaking news out of Indiana?
Yes, actually, this is I think as of almost, I think, I'll say about an hour ago, but they're saying that the hospitals and ambulatory surgical centers should have cancel or postpone elective and non-urgent surgical procedures mainly to save resources and personal needs or emerging health needs. So that's pretty interesting, seeing that the Indiana State Department of Health is kind of following what the CDC has been saying for quite a while now. So that'll be interesting seeing how this will affect hospitals and people that are wanting and needing surgery. So it'll be interesting seeing what will happen next, as my father is a nurse and he's been having to deal with this stuff lately, and they're not happy about it. So it'll be interesting what happens.
All right, we've also got some more news that's come in the last half hour or so. The European Union will be closing its external borders on Tuesday. That is breaking news, and Switzerland declaring an emergency right now.
Yeah. Also, another thing right now, Sudan just closed their borders as well.
Where did, sorry?
Um, Sudan just closed their borders
Sudan.
as well. There's been a few countries that have, in Africa that don't have cases or have very minimal cases that have moved drastically, similar to El Salvador, I think it was, to close their borders to either all countries or all countries that have reported cases of coronavirus, which is even more extreme than just the temporary things that of certain countries that you've been seeing in America and Europe to this point in time. You know, the logic there is that because they know they have generally weaker care systems, that they feel they need to take more drastic action to keep their own people safe from the disease at this point in time.
And what about poor Italy at the moment? Over 3,000 cases per day for the third day running now.
Yeah, and another 349 deaths reported there as well. Italy's bringing up one of the significant concerns that even if you have a very strong healthcare system to try to treat people like they do, their government-run healthcare system is among some of the best in the world. If you don't properly take containment actions and proper social distancing and stuff, you're still going to end up being overwhelmed by the disease, which is being shown clear as day in Italy and could be precipitating in Spain, Germany, and France in the very near future. All three of those countries that I just listed there, all three recorded over 1,000 confirmed cases today as well, up to this point in time.
Yeah.
And based on the daily reset clock, that could still even go up a bit more as well.
Yeah,
What's
indeed.
most concerning is another increase in deaths in Italy. 349 new deaths today in Italy. That's more than the daily peak that was ever seen in China, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh
Um,
wow.
Before this, their most deaths in a single day in Italy was 2 days ago, March 13th. Or no, yesterday. I'm sorry, 368 was yesterday. They recorded 349 today, which is still another staggering increase. So about like 10% of the new cases are correlating with a death rate at this point in time for the virus, unfortunately, in Italy.
All right.
You got to hope that really starts to blow off soon enough, though, because their mortality rate is significantly higher than we're seeing in other countries in the world.
So that's the situation in Italy right now. We'll probably have some more news about Europe in the next half hour. But for now, we'll take a short break and take a look at those latest numbers. This is Force 13 Live. During this special coverage, we'd like to hear from you and the situation in your area. Send images, video or audio recordings to contact@force13.com and we'll put them to air. CoronaBeat Live on Force 13. Here we are again for another half hour of discussion. Not so long ago, there was a speech by President Trump basically telling people not to assemble in groups larger than 10, and also that the recession is on the horizon. We're going to go to Tim next, so if you've got any reaction on that, go right ahead, and whatever else you wanted to talk about.
The congregations of less than 10, that actually makes sense with a lot of the already other state governments already reducing it to 500 and 100 or less. And I wanted to touch back on something Strat was talking about when you asked about what the market means to, say, your average Joe. With the market tanking by as much as 1/4 of its value in the last month, what that means is anybody that has investments in their 401k, IRAs, anything like that, your retirement fund is getting shredded with the way this market is going. On top of that, I know most people are looking at oil being under 30 a barrel. Yeah, that might be great for you at the pump, but on the flip side of it all, that means the oil industry is tanking hard. I know Strat had talked about that last week, but that also means that the profits that the oil industry would be making is affecting those jobs in that respective field.
Yes, indeed.
Yep.
Strat?
And Tim's right for both those, especially the 401k stuff, and then shale as well, the oil industry. One of the problems with the extreme rate of change, I have this chart up here if you're screen sharing it. The S&P index is down about 30% in under a month, which is insane. The volatility, for example, we lost yesterday's in less than a day, for example, which is just crazy. But with a lot of general talking heads in financial media and brokers and even government officials telling people back when we were around 3,000 points on the S&P index to buy the dip, for example, and that that we were going to bounce back, more people, even when they first started to go down, instead of trying to protect themselves almost and keep their equity positions or even sell out closer to the top, to adding more money in. And that means that's a ton of money for general consumers, people that are just trying to save for their retirement, that has completely gone down the drain in a very large way in the past couple of weeks.
To piggyback off of that, oil commodities, which I know you're keeping an eye on, the loss that it has incurred within the last month, we have not seen that kind of drop since 1991, Strat. Now, you're talking 1991, you're talking the Persian Gulf War, so we have not seen oil prices drop that drastic since we were in wartime in the Middle East.
Yeah, and I have the oil chart up here, and that creates a massive problem for countless jobs and companies as well, because oil is not profitable or sustainable in America under $40 a barrel. Usually $45 a barrel is usually the limit where cost-cutting measures have to be initiated. We're under 30 right now, even for U.S. oil. I have the crude futures up right here, right? 28.60s right now after hours. A problem is that a lot of the high-yield credit system in America that banks use, that investors use, that fuels companies almost, is run on these risky loans given to these shale companies, these oil companies that aren't profitable anymore. And even a couple weeks ago, when oil was already starting this, pretty steep decline up here, we dropped from the high at the start of the year of $65 a barrel of oil down to 43 and stuff. There was concerns that jobs would have to start to be cut. Those rumors that layoffs were coming in soon. Oil has dropped, another over 30% since then.
Not to mention, Strat, with oil being lower, refineries aren't getting the oil out. And without the oil, that affects your logistics. We're talking your truck drivers, as at least in the United States, at least 70% of all consumer goods are transported by freight trucks. Those are your run-of-the-mill 18-wheeler truck drivers.
Now, Timothy, how soon do you think that would be affected?
It's really up in the air. I mean, with oil still being pretty well predominantly available for the logistics industry, it's not really the oil I'd be worried about, it's the manpower. With this virus spreading, companies, some of your larger freight companies may be hesitant to send their driver on a trip to one place to another to pick up freight to transport it. If those companies start getting cold feet, that's less drivers on the road, and that is less opportunity to not only for the drivers to be making money to help stimulate the economy that they're trying to help support, but that also means less freight getting to the areas that desperately need it.
All right, there's another look at the latest case map across the US by county, and again, virtually every state under threat there in one way or another. Now let's go for another perspective over here in the UK, where things haven't been going particularly fast at the moment. But Lee's joining us in Scotland right now, and we've not heard anything from up there really yet. We know that the first fatality in Scotland happened last week, I think it was. So what's going on up there right now?
It seems to have stalled around 171 cases so far for Scotland, and just that one death. But there seems to be a lot of tests being done, 4,000 tests currently still going on, but there hasn't been much change today at all.
What are the attitudes like up there? How are people taking it?
Well, I can say one word: panic.
Panic?
Yeah, panic. I'm not
so everywhere then, by the looks of things.
Yes, absolutely.
And well, that's mad. Everywhere.
Madness.
No,
and I saw
we've
that
certainly
yesterday.
seen it around these parts too. It's crazy. David?
I saw that yesterday when I went into the local food shop, and the shelves just becoming more barren, and Woolworths, one of our biggest retailer food, they're shutting their doors, 1,000 stores. Tomorrow night, they're actually closing an hour earlier so they can restock the shelves. But I got a bit of a shock yesterday, and I've never seen it so bad. But panic buying, and talking to a couple of the girls.
David, I ought to interrupt, actually. I forgot to tell everyone about this. You had some news out of San Francisco just now.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yes. Tim, would you like to... I haven't got the information in front of me. Nathan, is, I think they're advising... people
all residents being ordered to shelter at home?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
They just put that into action. There's also a couple other statewide or locality events that just occurred. Pennsylvania just ordered all liquor stores to close indefinitely, so no timeline. And the New Orleans mayor just ordered all bars and nightclubs to close in the town as well.
That is the same aspect that's happening in the state of Ohio. That kind of hits me personally, since my dad helps run one of the little social lodges. Social lodges being your VFWs, moose lodges of that nature. And the governor of Ohio ordered all bars and social gatherings and restaurants like that shut down. But to piggyback off of what you were talking, David, yes, 7 health offices within the 6 Bay Area counties have taken a bold, unified step to slow the spread of the virus. These are in Alameda, Contra Costa, Marin, San Francisco, San Mateo, and Santa Clara counties, and within the city of Berkeley, a legal order directing those respective residents in those areas to shelter at home for 3 weeks beginning tomorrow, March 17th.
Wow.
Tim, the drastic measures, and we're seeing it over there in San Francisco, and it could happen over here. We've got to slow the transmission rate. And when you look at Victoria, New South Wales, we've got it.
Now there is
self-isolate.
There is a stipulation on it, Dave, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm reading more of this article that you provided, that everybody is to shelter in place unless they need to go out for essential needs. Now, essential needs
Yeah.
is including business includes going out getting your groceries business, and that allows you business that provides food, shelter, social services, other necessities for life, economically disadvantaged or otherwise needy individuals. Fresh and non-perishable food retailers, including convenience stores at your 7-Elevens and all that. Pharmacies, child care facilities, gas stations, banks, laundry businesses, and services necessary for the safety, sanitation, and essential operation of a house. So when they say the shelter in place, it's not like you're in complete lockdown.
Right.
It just means that you need to limit your activity to essential, necessary movements. Otherwise, uh, they may end up citing you or maybe something else, depending
All right.
on what they decide to do.
We'll be back with more worldwide news after this short break here, and we'll see what else is going on. The news continues to break here live. We will continue to run regular updates on this feature. Send us a message on social media if you wish to be involved in our coverage or to join us on our panel nightly. Send us a message through Facebook, Twitter, or our contact email address, contact@force13.com. Force 13 Live, we're back here again with the final segment of the latest on CoronaBeat. And, well, we're in these times, aren't we, where the news is breaking 24/7. So we've had that news just out of San Francisco. All residents in the area and surrounding areas being ordered to shelter. But we also want to hear from someone who's been hidden for quite a while, at least from our scope, over in Colombia. Marcel?
Hello,
Good evening.
afternoon.
Afternoon for
everyone.
you, indeed. Now, I've been watching Colombia for a little while. It's never appeared on our graphics because it hasn't quite eclipsed Ecuador's number of cases, but they have risen quite a lot in Colombia, up to about 50 now, I believe. Is that right?
Yes, 54. We have
54.
right now 54, and now the government is taking some uh, uh, the government is taking action on this. From today, all public schools and universities are closed, and with uh, are closed.
Yeah.
Classes and all presential activities are suspended in all public universities and schools, and also in most of public and private universities and schools. And also recent, recently the government has ordered that public uh, that public meetings of more than 50 people are banned.
Yeah.
Also,
Go ahead.
also, also we uh, also all foreigners that don't have the Colombian nationality are currently banned of entering the country.
Now, a lot of places in Latin America have done those measures, but how are the public reacting over there, Marcel? Is it the same as what we've seen elsewhere? Is there a lot of panic going on?
So although there hasn't been there there hasn't been a mass panic like in other countries.
Mhm.
Yes, we have a bit of panic because we there right now there is the the surgical mask was declared was was officially declared was often
What was that? Sorry.
uh, the surgical mask that is a fundamental
Yeah.
fundamental in this uh, was declared officially depleted and out
Okay.
depleted in the country, and that allows the um, allows the manufacturers to make all manufacturers to make surgical masks
Yeah.
with, without a registry.
So everyone's wearing the masks right now.
And no, so I have seen recently more people wearing masks, but mostly people don't know how to use it,
Yeah,
or
that's what we've heard quite a lot.
and
Yeah,
and
and I think
also
that's
and go ahead.
Strat?
yeah. I was just say quickly. One of the problems is if you don't know how to wear a mask and you're using it and you're not showing symptoms or a caretaker, you could just be increasing your own risk of getting the virus because it means you're touching your face much more than you should be anyways.
So also from today, all bars and nightclubs and are closed in the entire country. Uh, but there has been like criticism also because that the um, like the norms
Criticism
and
for what?
because the measures that
Okay.
are being applied in the international airport of Bogota aren't being the sufficient and are being badly applied, and so
Okay.
there are coming many imported cases mostly from Europe and and
Right. So the testing and the screening hasn't been good enough.
um I th- okay, so in the testing measures, the Ministry of Health has imposed like like a specialized centers of to to uh,
Hmm.
to test the to to of testing in the entire country. Uh,
Yeah.
then we have like we're the first country in Latin America to have this special mesh
Yeah.
special test centers, and
All right. Well,
yes.
well, well. Hopefully that does Colombia well. I see Parker there. You're clicking on some of the neighboring countries as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
Venezuela. Oh, sorry.
yes, Venezuela has like
17 there. Yeah.
cases. Uh, they mm, ec- and Peru has more cases, 86, and has recently declared national lockdown
Hmm.
national and declare that all citizens of the country need to isolate.
Yeah. You'll probably see a lot more of that around the whole world, as we've been seeing. That it's
Yeah.
going on
Also,
everywhere at this point.
other Latin American countries, as far as I know, Paraguay and El Salvador, has also been been locked down. They
Yeah,
All
and
right.
speaking of more lockdown acts, Switzerland just now, the government banned all private and public events from starting in, uh, I think, an hour to their local time until April 19th, and that includes closing every shop, restaurant, bar, and recreational area in the country.
We've
So that the
also
only places open will be supermarkets and health services.
we've just got news that Russia has also banned international entry until the 1st of May as well.
Yeah, so a
Wow.
lot of international actions being taken right now.
And
Um,
also, all the universities in my country are transitioning to virtual and online teaching.
Yes.
Speaking of that, Marcel, I've just cited a news story here in the U.S. that a couple major cable and internet providers are now offering free internet to students without Wi-Fi during this epidemic. The two providers are Charter Comcast, which owns Spectrum, and Comcast are going to be providing students with 60 days of free internet access so they can be able to keep up their studies if they don't already currently use that service. And a couple other broader notes out of the University of North Carolina Medical Center that clinical microbiology experts have developed a COVID-19 disease diagnostic test that is up to the standards of the FDA. So we will hopefully be seeing more testing being done in the near future. And an even brighter note is we now have clinical trials underway in the Seattle area for COVID 19. They just started their first clinical trial for first stage study. So
Well, only
we
good
do
if it
have
works.
that is
Usually you gotta
true,
go through.
but that is at least some of the silver
Mm.
lining with this current pandemic, which is so far tragic to see unfolding, but hopefully we can beat this.
All right, we just got a few more minutes here. I want to talk about supermarket chains here in the UK and now also in Australia, I've heard. Dave, you might want to add some comment on this. Having opening hours for just the elderly and disabled, an hour set aside each day for those vulnerable groups. Have you heard anything about that? They're doing that here too.
Nathan, Coles, which is Woolworths and Coles IGA, also Woolworths and Coles will open up, as you mentioned, 7 to 8. We do have the stores open at 7 a.m. So for the first hour of training, it will be exclusively for those that really can't get in. There are strict conditions on who can get in. I've heard that some people have been turned away, but you've got to have the government concession cards. And following on Nathan Reed, the internet, Telstra, Australia's biggest company, telecommunications, has decided to give its customers unlimited download on top of what
Wow.
they say. That is a positive
There certainly is.
move. So
And
that's good news. Unlimited download on a lot of their products.
And also, that there is more measures in here in my countries. So, example, the National League of Football was suspended until new order. The largest cinema chain in the country has decided to close all of their all all of their cinema complexes
Yeah.
and the other cinema chains have.
Virtually every public congregation location there
yeah,
in Colombia shut down, like a lot of the European countries as well. Yeah.
but
and you're starting to
but
see a lot of local municipalities in America do that too.
but also there has been attacks against the houses and a house of a coronavirus infected person in
Really?
one
Oh
city.
God.
And
Why? Hold on a minute. Why?
yes, there
I would
was.
assume, correct me if I'm wrong, Marcel, maybe because of a fear of living near people that may be infected.
And also there is one person infected with the virus in the country is reporting is reporting threats from other people.
Really? Well, that's
Yeah, because
that's
a lot of people
crazy
nearby might
situation.
not want, are probably irrationally scared
Yeah,
of
it's out of
living
fear,
in
I
any
guess.
vicinity. There's a lot of fear. There was even in Iran, a couple of weeks there were similar things happening, all over the world. It's not really a specific hour or a specific location thing. There were attacks against hospitals, trying attempts to burn them in certain places. In America, we saw big social media protests and government moves to stop having certain quarantine centers and locations of residents and stuff. Uh, you know, it's not great, and local governments
Right.
are having to step up big time in preventative measures to stop new people from going outside if they're if you're home from
Okay,
school and
Strat.
stuff.
We got to wind up
A
here.
lot of young
Any
people.
final thoughts,
That's it.
I
Stay
just
rational.
Parker?
I was going to
Yeah.
point out that I think even David heard about this too, but clinical research director Professor David Patterson told News.com AU today that they have seen two drugs used to treat other conditions wipe out the test and virus in test tubes, and the two medications that they combined are chloroquine, an anti-malarial drug, and HIV suppressant combination of labnavir and retnovir. And that is
I don't
what
even
could
know
be
what they are.
Oh God.
yeah, but it's two treatments that they found out that can kill the virus entirely, and they have been using it on some patients recently. And with some help of therapy, it would have gotten it completely eliminates the virus from their system and body. So it'll be very interesting to see if they will use this or use
Oh.
what the U.S. is using.
Oh
So
wow.
that'll be
And
a very
also,
There's
Yeah,
nothing
we
really
really
confirmed
need
though,
it.
because
We'll wait and see
that's
on that
really
one.
early clinical trial, and you got to be concerned about potential side effects that could cause too. If you're just randomly mixing something together and hope to it working, you have
oh,
to
and
monitor
also
the long-term side effects.
I have now breaking news of my country.
Really?
And in two departments of my country was declared curfew.
A curfew in two parts of Colombia now at this point. It's going to
And the
escalate
departments-
further, I'm sure.
In the departments of Cordoba and Quindío.
Thank you very much, Marcel, for coming on the air, and everyone else tonight with our team. We're out of time. We'll see you again on our next Corona Beat, which will probably be tomorrow night at the same time, 8 p.m. UTC. That's 4 p.m. Eastern Time. It's getting
Right.
tough out there.
Hello.
good night.
Yep. Good night.